decision time already? Any additions? Wonderful. Quote, e-waste trade is not a positive trade based on competitive advantage. Rather, it is unjust exploitation of developing countries' weak capacity for environmental and occupational regulations. Developed countries are far less equipped to effectively manage e-waste hazards in ways that protecting human health and the environment than the countries that generate the waste. In fact, most developing countries have little or no control over disposal of hazardous waste. Furthermore, many people working with e-waste have minimal education or are illiterate and lack basic knowledge of the dangers they are exposed to on a daily basis. In the Seattle Journal for Social Justice, 2009. Obviously, there is a problem here. It is an unjust problem, it is harming many people, and we can help. In this speech, we're going to go ahead and address what my opponent brought in his last speech, so revisit the voting issue, talk about some drops, and really impact everything so we can weigh this as to really where the round ought to go today. First, let's talk about those quick solvency issues. First of all, the first of the solvency issues is that customs really is not going to be enforcement. They said that customs is not, in fact, over enforcement. Our mandate 2 specifically said that customs would regulate. It has the word regulation, so that they would oversee regulation. Absolutely, customs is enforcing. Additionally, we saw that the GAO was pretty much a plan advocate, set our plan word for word when it comes to customs, so that they should do this using their codes. So we have the government accountability as a plan advocate there. Next, we see that customs, in fact, is doing this. It is regulating. Our tag was customs enforcement. That obviously shows us customs will be the one enforcing it right now, and customs can do that. We have that advocate. So then I'm going to go ahead and move down to the charity loophole. Now, actually, first of all, they said the evidence again that was for voluntary companies. Again, we have no evidence that it is U.S. law. What we're doing is we're saying, as our first mandate says, we are banning e-waste. We're not saying banning e-waste and letting the charity law continue. We're banning e-waste. That is total. We're banning all e-waste. We're not allowing this violation any longer. We're not going to allow that to continue. Next, let's go ahead and move on. It says, well, there's not a definition the Supreme Court wouldn't accept. My partner's definition is something along those lines. We said in our case many times, we're looking at used electronics. We stated at the very beginning of the case, that's what we're talking when we say e-waste. That means used electronics, which is ultimately an electronic device that has been used and is ready to be shipped off, as we stated in our definition. So ultimately, that is the definition our whole case functions under. That is the definition that would be implemented. That's what we're working under. Next, they said that really we're still looking at a huge industry that we're just collapsing. I have 3 responses here again. First of all, their evidence was from 2004 versus ours in 2010. That says the countries do not want it. They're actually trying to stop it. Now, if it's such a huge industry, if it's making them so much money, why would the country just try and stop it? The fact is the countries are trying to stop this. They do not want it. Next, we see harm 3. We're still putting a band-aid on a gaping wound. We are crippling their entire nation. And finally, this is simply not just. We do not need to endorse this. Now, with that in mind, let's go ahead and go back to my partner's first voting issue. Is it just? Is it just? Ultimately, our definition says we are giving them what is due. That is what justice is, giving them what they are due. Or environmental justice specifically is not burdening them with disproportionate environmental impact because of economic status. That is exactly what we are doing. Because of their economic status, they do not have the enforcement or regulations or ability to stop us. We are taking our toxic mess and putting it on them. As we said, millions of people are negatively affected through this. This is obviously a disproportionate burdening of these nations. As we said in harm 3, we're crippling them because of their economic status, because they cannot stop us. This is unjust. In fact, they dropped this entire voting issue, saying harm 1, it is fundamentally unjust. The next point under this voting issue, the people are ignorant of what they are doing right now. Next, countries do not want it. Next, under that point, we see that it cripples their country. Next, we are not banning scrap metal whatsoever. We are allowing that. If it's a toxic waste material, yes, we're not going to allow them to deal with toxic waste materials that hurt them. Next, we see that the timeline action is very, very good. We look at net benefits. Under my partner's second voting issue, is it harmful? They really essentially dropped all the harms here. Justice is harm. It is fundamentally unjust. These countries neither want it, they're neither capable of it, and finally, they do not even really have the capacity to handle it. As I read in that first piece of evidence, we are much better equipped than they are to handle it. Additionally, we still have health to deal with. Now, they're obviously getting most of the health harms here, but we're also taking on some health harms, as we stated in harm 2. Again, harm 3, we're crippling their nation. Harm 4, we have lost opportunities, and finally, it is absolutely unjust. When we do some impact, looking at impact here, what we see is that we right now have an unjust policy. We are harming other nations, negatively impacting the health of millions, and we can solve. For all of these reasons, we strongly urge an affirmative ballot. Thank you.